Good evening, boys and girls, ladies and gentlemen. BJ on Game Day back again for another week. As always, Brent, Joshy, and Bogan, and joining us for a second time in a number of weeks. Actually, we have brought back on Adrian Delaney, mate. How are you?
Mate, I'm super. I've had a good round one, and
Hang on, shut the fuck. How do you get invited back, you fucking bastard?
I'll tell you what. How, mate? 1381. That's how you fucking. What did you get?
I got fuck all. That's what I got. I got fuck all.
Yeah, Jesus.
So no camera for me, guys, this week. I don't know what's going on, but having a few issues here on the camera, which is probably not a bad thing with how I can fucking look. But boys, an absolute nightmare for me week one. Obviously, not having Teddy definitely hurt, definitely backfired. Probably go down as my worst call of all Supercoach for the amount of years that I've been playing. Hampton, mate, I remember last year actually. I said to you at the start of last year, it didn't matter how much he cost, you just had to have him in. And granted, look, it wasn't that sort of stopped me. The price really didn't deter me this year. It was more trying to go a little bit of pod action with Brimson, and again, he only fucking got some junk time points to move from 20 to 60. So 1,081 for me, boys. I'm sitting about 50,000, which is actually pretty normal. It's just all the blokes I worry about who are up there. You're all fucking sitting in the top 100 and 2,000 and whatever it is. So this could be in for a good year, boys. It might be one of your years.
Yeah, no, I understand why you didn't want to show your face, Joshy. You're all good, mate. All sweet. Ados, how did you go, mate? What did you end up on the end?
Yeah, I got a 1381. Like I was saying to you pre-show, I wasn't without my problems. I had Lodge like everyone. I had Staines like everyone. I had Appy for 28. I ended up because I looped Teddy. I got Simonson. He's 24 or whatever on the bench. So, I mean, it's kind of like what could have been. I could have been in mid 1400s if I picked a couple of things better. Because of my loop, I had to put Laurie on the bench, so that was at least 20 points. But, I mean, who's going to be too upset at a 1381 to start with? So, I just played the odds, and it was probably, the safe approach to VC, Teddy. But, 1381, I'll take any day of the week as a round one.
Yeah, boys, and I think that's a cracking score. I think plenty of 1300s across the board in general, 1200 plus. Joshy, you've had an absolute shocker there with 1080, but unfortunately, a crazy round one. I thought after Thursday night, was it with South Melbourne? I missed Pappy after having him most of the preseason. I missed Latrell after I thought there might have been a value there at 500k, and I was dark, and I thought, this is no good. And it's crazy what can happen because by after Saturday night, it was completely turned on its head. So it was monster. Bogan, how did you go, mate? Yeah. Good score for anyone. I don't think, as I said, any other day, I've said sort of throughout the week to people, if you had said to me before round one started, here's 1250 or something, I'd take it every day of the week. Yeah, good stuff. Yeah, so plenty happened as well. So a bit to get through in the team list as well. Angus Crichton will miss a week. Matty Lodge obviously got injured as well. Plenty of people started with him in the front row, or we're looking at him to be a good cheapie. A few changes happened around the place, so should be an interesting week, boys. But good start across the board, and hello to everyone in the chat. I can see we've got a few in there tonight, so thanks for joining us again. Hope you all had a good first week. Bit of a shout out to Jed in the group as well, Bogan. He scored just under 1,500, 1,497.
What a monster champion!
Huge score, mate. Absolutely massive. Well done on that. All right, so where are we going, Bogs? What's planned? Hello in the chat. Yeah, season opener, it was an interesting start. Melbourne come out the gates absolutely flying, and it sort of seemed like it was going to be a matter of how much. Obviously, Pappy was involved early, months went over early, and I was absolutely having nightmares about Pappenhausen in particular. Um, Melbourne looked amazing in that first 40. Um, South sort of had a bit of a charge late in the first half, and I didn't expect them to sort of bring it back as they did. But yeah, Cody Walker and Latrell looked super impressive. It was funny, guys. I actually talked a lot of people off Walker, and maybe not so Mitchell, but Walker for his price, especially 650k. I thought, looking at their draw, Melbourne, I think they play Chooks next week in round 3, and I just thought you can't start with Cody. But after what I saw against Melbourne on the weekend, or on Thursday night rather, can't be critical of anyone for having Latrell or Cody, to be honest. But yeah, some big scores in that one to start the round off. Plenty of people started with Pappy and Latrell, and they were super impressive. And I think one of the biggest things about Latrell was he was pretty involved, to be honest, guys. He had a bit of base in his score as well as some of the attacking stats. But it was a massive game to open the round for Supercoach and the footy in general. What are your thoughts on it?
Oh, geez, we're talkative fucking bunch tonight, aren't we? Obviously, as a Rabbitohs fan, I was pretty disappointed. I think Wayne Bennett summed it up that South seemed to only play for half an hour. But
Logan, I think you're right there. But at the end of the day, probably for the first half, obviously Melbourne dominated the game. Their forwards were a lot better. The Bunnies took a little while to get going. They dropped the ball left, right, and centre. But in that second half, obviously we saw a little bit of a comeback from them. Their backline's absolutely lethal. How they sort of move the ball, doesn't matter which side of the park it is, left to right, right to left. Latrell looks amazing. Walker's there. Adam Reynolds has got plenty of ability as well. And I think we saw the influence of obviously Jai Arrow. He sort of stepped up for them in that middle sort of segment of the game and got them back into it. But Melbourne, a little bit too good just based off their flying start.
And don't Melbourne have some ridiculous record for round 1 wins or something?
20,
Yeah,
like that.
It's like 20 in a row or something. That's fucking ridiculous.
never been. Look, I think that if you're a Souths or a Storm fan, that I think these teams are like top 4 going against each other in round 1. Souths have always got that kind of, the type of play which will have that in a round 1, or even sometimes mid-year where they just start slow and then come home with a wet sail. But if you're a Souths fan, are you really feeling like, they got to 26-18 and it seemed like Melbourne were on top the whole game.
Yeah, look, I think if I'm a South fan, I'm happy with the performance with regards to the result being as close as it is, Adra. I think that's what you sort of lean to. And, because I think any other team, the way Melbourne were playing, they're probably, they're 40 to 6 down at the end of the game. So I'd be pretty happy with the Bunnies, and they showed plenty of potential there. So, yeah.
I think they were in it until the Gagai penalty. I think there was a hit on Hughes for it didn't look like much in it, to be honest, but they were on the comeback. They were down by 6, and Gagai got done for the hit on Hughes, and they took the 2, and that ended up being that killed a bit of the momentum for them. But
if you went Latrell and you had the balls to go Latrell 117, it's in a game against the quality of Melbourne Storm. You'd almost say you'd be happy if you got a 40. So 117 is amazing, and I'm sure that Jai Arrow's on a lot of people's radars after this week, isn't it?
Absolutely, Adrian. And I was pretty vocal in thinking that he would come back. I thought this addition into the South team, new team, new environment. I did. I thought we'd see exactly what we saw. So I reckon, don't want to go as far as to say he's back as what he was, but I reckon it's not far off, and he's definitely a good gamble over this week or next week to trade before any price rises, because if he continues, mate, very cheap.
It was really interesting. There was a few guys of relevance in this one that people were thinking about before the season started. So you had guys like Welsh, Brendan Smith. Well, there's much to Josh's dismay. Even Arrow, Cam Murray, Cookie is a big one, guys. Like Cookie only scored 36 points. Murray 53. So there was a heap of guys. Mansour scored 15, and as we'll see, he's been dropped this week. But it was a big game for Supercoach, and there was plenty of guys that didn't fire first week. But it was the fullbacks doing it again. As I said, I thought Welsh looked good on the field. I thought he scored. His Supercoach score didn't reflect to me how it looked like he was playing. He played 51 minutes, scored 52 points, so he was pretty much a point a minute. Brandon Smith was similar.
I may as well. Let's expand a little bit on Welch, mate. Obviously, that's the first performance we get to see of the year. The big factor that I look at when I look at him and sort of why, I'd sort of, give him the award and all that kind of stuff pre-season is basically with just how big a bloke I don't think he's got the motor to play those big minutes throughout the whole year. Like, all right, he's only played 50 in round one and he's going to get fitter and stronger. I just never thought he was that top echelon. You know what I mean? I do think Liam Knight's definitely still got the award named after him because this bloke's a little bit better. But I
think it's these ugly looking players, and you look at Welsh and you just like, how did he get to 52? Like, you can see that he was on field and doing stuff, but I mean, when you own him and you own Barnett. Well, I was watching Barnett and just watching him rack up points, and I know he's second row, but I mean, you just pick players, and Tino got him covered, and he got there with a great deal more ease,
Yeah, and that's exactly right. You watch Welch play 50 minutes there in round one, he looked like he'd played 150. It just doesn't look as easy as simpler as other players. Mm-hmm. He missed 5 or 6 tackles in the match as well. Like, he was gassed. He was absolutely gassed. But I mean, hey, 52 points at the end of the day for a guy that cost you 450. It's not that bad a thing. So,
Look, you've only got, like you said, Josh, your first game, a sample of one. I think you'll probably have a heap of bigger problems in your side this week, or I'd like to think you would. If you started with Welsh, you started with him for a reason. You're probably going to see him through the next few weeks, as long as Finucane and Harry Grant are out, and there's every chance the minute's up a little bit and he scores a little bit more.
Yeah, but as a start, it was if you picked him, it was a good buy. To start, you wouldn't be upset with 52. Hit the 400 Ks.
I mean, it wasn't a good buy.
You consider Cookie at 621k for 36 points in comparison to that. And even Brandon Smith at 490k, he played 69 minutes and only scored 45 in base, and that was his score. So, I mean, Cookie's an interesting one, boys. Last year, if you go and have a look at his stats, I've just brought it up on Supercoach stats, NRL Supercoach stats. His first 2 scores last year were 47 and 35, and then he went on from there. He pretty much averaged above, didn't score below 50 until round 11 after that, and he had a couple tons. So South's draw does improve from, I think, around 4 after they played the Chooks.
When did they lose Mitchell last year? Early.
Was it early and then they lost him again later in the year?
Oh, I tell you what.
Do you reckon there's a correlation there, do you reckon?
I reckon it looked like he just didn't, like he was just shoveling the ball off to get to Mitchell or Walker.
Well, I think...
Well,
50% of the attack changes direction from being in the middle of the park through Cook to being to Latrell if Latrell's on the park.
Well, the other big one was Benji coming on. They've sort of used him as that pivot in the middle, and he was playing that first receiver to shuffle the ball out to Reynolds and especially Walker. And if Cookie effectively loses that potential to be involved, I guess, if there is any,
I would be drastically concerned if I owned Cook. I would really be drastically concerned because it doesn't mean that he's not going to do his part for the team. It just does not look like the Cookie that could get 100. I like the way they played last week. There was no way Cook was getting anywhere near 100. He had no attack. He had his hands on the ball less, and it's like what everyone feared about Walker with Mitchell on the field. Mm-hmm. It looks like it's taken it from Cook.
Yeah, they don't rely on him like they might have needed to a couple of years ago. The way Walker has come on a bit in the last 12, 24 months. And Latrell obviously moving there, they don't need Cookie for that stuff at all, do they?
Well, Cook started fairly slow last year as well, though. So is it worth waiting to see if he drops?
Yeah, would you hold him?
600k.
Yeah.
It's a big decision to make.
I mean, because what's he got in there? He's got a 38, and he's gonna drop money. You think, unless he has a ripper this week?
I'd hold him, but I'd sub out Appy.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I started with Appy, but I've sold Appy this week, and I've done because of selling Appy, I've been able to upgrade elsewhere. I've been able to upgrade Lodge to Junior Paulo. So, you know, I think that's a good trade. Those are smart trades, which are all just green ticks. But I don't know if it's a green tick. Some people have talked to me about, will I sell Angus? Will I sell Maddo? And I guess that Cook has to be in that conversation. Like, would you sell Cook? And I don't put Appy in the same category as Cook. I say he's the echelon below, and you can rely on him for some good scores. But 28 last week, and he's got that wrist injury, and just the way they played, I think that's a reasonable sell. But Cook, gutsy.
No, fair enough. Move on to the next game, boys. And Hampton, your lads, the Knights, 32-16 winners over the Bulldogs. Mate, we're a couple of really, really impressive performances here individually. Saifidi and Mitch Barnett, huge scores, mate. And obviously yourself, boys, and a lot of people who had Barney couldn't believe how his ownership was still so low, being that he's going to have the goal kicking for the next few weeks. And they've got a fairly easy run.
4%.
Yeah, I think it was ADOS. Yeah, look, we as a footage perspective, we didn't start well. Dogs scored first, and it was torrential rain. So, to begin the match, the conditions were terrible, and it looked shocking because I opted to play Hoy. I didn't play Watson because he got dropped to the bench late as well, which is an interesting part to the game. As it turned out, man ended up going off, and Watson played out, the whole second half, and actually looked good. But yeah, Saifidi crossed for a double. Barnett was massive. I mean, his base wasn't big, and I know there's plenty of chat around saying he's potentially a trap if he is to lose the goal kicking, but Ponga's no crash shot goal kicker, if I'm honest, boys. Like, I've seen Ponga miss that many goals last year that there's no reason to think that Barnett might not keep it. I guess the concern for me with Barnett is once Fitzgibbon's fit, he naturally plays that left edge. So whether I don't know if Barnett keeps that spot, if Fitzgibbon's not playing well enough, or we'll have to see what happens there. And if he starts to rotate in the middle, I'm not entirely sure what the minute makeup will be with him there. But really good start for the 4% of whatever it was that started with him. I started with him. Brayley was another one, huge for 350 odd K. He was in everything. I think he played 80 as well, boys. And Clemmer played big minutes. I mean, both our props played some bizarre minutes. Ados, I know we mentioned it over the weekend as well, but Big Clem played 75 minutes. I think Saifidi wasn't too much different either. 60 minutes. So, yeah, some big scores there.
He's a bit of a weird coach in a way, because kind of like he's one of those ones that scares the living shit out of you because you don't know exactly what he's going to do. He's got a bit of that about him. And when he played the Saifidi and Clement for so long, I was surprised. I just thought in round one maybe he eases a bit, but they were great for every minute they were on the field, and so was Barnett. And I don't think he's going to lose the kicking. I mean, he missed one in the wet. He had some from out wide. I thought the Knights looked better than I expected them to be, really.
Yeah, look, we'll take it. It was a potential danger game for us. We lost to the Dogs in the rain last year, so I'll take it. I think Flanagan looked really good for the Dogs as well, boys. I know they weren't great in general, but he threw a couple of really good passes to put a couple of Dogs over the line as well. Some great vision from him there. But yeah, the Dogs were just dropping too much ball in the end, giving us too much footy. In terms of Supercoach, I guess Avarillo probably burned a few boys. I know a lot of people looked at starting with Avarillo, so he popped out in 18. I just think the conditions didn't really help him. He couldn't really get himself into the game. Watson wasn't too bad considering he didn't start the game with 53. Tex Hoy was someone I was hoping would do well, but I think he got lucky with his 43. Got some attacking stats in there with setting up a try. You had Hetherington. A lot of people had a look at Hetherington. At about 300k, he only scored 35 points. So
Elliott swung his dick all over the place for 74. What a big dick from him.
Yeah, so he was one of probably the best for the Dogs and scored a try to sort of bring him back in it. But yeah, he played 80 minutes, 40 points in base.
People took a punt on him, and I brought him in on a draft, and can't be unhappy with that. He's above his above what he's expected to get, and I think did he get a try? I don't know.
He did, yes.
Yeah, he was good.
So yeah, anyway, some improvement there for the Dogs to be had next week, but yeah, I think that's about it for me, boys. Unless you want to add something on that one.
Nah, not too much there. Said it all pretty much.
Do you have anyone from this game, Joshy?
Look, not really, mate. I think that the stars sort of shone through that we expected. Dan Saifidi obviously went a little bit better than I thought he would, but I really thought he'd continue that form from last year. Obviously, 2 tries will help that there. But
do you reckon Brayley? Do you reckon he's going to play 80 every week? Look at that. I mean,
you hand the kid the captaincy. You know that's probably what says the most. Is that that's a big thing for any player, especially one that's coming back off for an ACL in your first season for a club. He's obviously had a fair bit of influence behind the scenes and how that works. So I can't imagine why he wouldn't.
Yeah, he looked good. I mean, he looked better than I've ever seen him play. He looked more attacking. He just looked more mature and he looked like a premium hooker. Like to me, when I was watching as a punter, I just watched him and he looked good on the field. He looked like he was in control of his game and in the wet. And wow, I mean, I brought him in this week. I've dropped Appy down.
Yeah. And that's the trade. I'll look at Ados. I think I'm going to give Appy one more week just because I can. And given who they're playing, I'll wait to see. I thought Appy, when we get there, I thought he did something to his hand at one point, and that was part of the reason why he come off a little bit early. But, May was there. But, yeah, the other thing with Brayley, boys, is his base is going to be pretty good. He scored 50 points in base on the weekend. But you look at the tries Saifidi scored, those close to the line barge overs, those big boys are going to be hard to stop. Clemmer doesn't score many, but, you think about Barnett and even Frizzell hits the line really hard. Close to the line, there could be some regular-ish attacking stats at times for him as well. So, it could be a really good pickup for the year if he keeps playing these big minutes.
Yeah, and lots of people started with him too, so I think it was a good punt.
Friday night game, boys, and wow, if fucking 2020 wanted to move into 2021, this is how it did it. Broncos leading 16-0 at halftime to lose the game 24-16. Now, obviously, injuries may have played an excuse here for them, but at the end of the day, it was the same Broncos team that we saw last year. So much potential. At the end of the day, they come up short. The Eels had just a massive second half. Reid Marnie absolutely ran right up the middle. He found gaps everywhere in the Broncos' defence. I'm not too sure what the solution here is for the Broncos boys, but from a Supercoach point of view, obviously, as I say, Marnie found holes everywhere. Junior Paulo, wow, absolutely massive again.
What a beast.
Look, obviously anyone who started him and went with him, we spoke about him a fair bit in the pre-season. Unfortunately, I went away from him purely on the price and put the money elsewhere, but definitely another one alongside Teddy that I'll regret. Not as much as missing out on 160, but is what it is. Boys, Pangai, 79 points, 38 minutes, I think it was. What's our story there?
Yeah, sweet fucking, and he didn't even have any really attack in it. Really, it was like base. I originally, I'm living Tavita Loco. I wanted to get him in and maybe go him instead of Barnett, but I tell you what, he's got to be an upgrade target. I mean, everyone's saying get Haas back, but as if you don't want Tavita that's a PPM over 2.
Yeah.
In a team that got run down. I mean, he might have some less minutes if they didn't have all the injuries, but PPM of 2 cannot be ignored.
No, absolutely not, mate. And just surprising, really surprising the minutes considering the injuries they had. Obviously, you had Coates go down. Asiata was there as well. He went down. Who else went down in the forwards as well? I can't remember.
Lodge went down.
Lodge. Oh, of course, Lodge. Everyone destroyed by that the first 12 minutes. So, Yeah, very, very interesting, his minutes, making the rest of the team basically play that 80. And look, that forward rotation, as I say, the Eels won that game off the back of Reid Marnie up the middle. If Kevy Walters rotates those forwards that little bit better, maybe they don't play as tight in the second half. I don't know, but I just think poor coaching there on Kevy's part.
I think the injuries caught up. With 25 to go, they had virtually no bench. I think they had one. It was just too long to sustain it, and eventually a bit of momentum swung and Parra took advantage of it. But Pangai was really interesting, boys. He had seven effective offloads in that time that he was on. I think, his first few carries in the game, he was offloading the ball. So if he's got that license to throw the arm around and he's doing it that much, that's crazy. 28 points just in offloads for him.
I mean, they look like they're going to go an attacking approach this year, so that's like perfectly laid out for a player like Pangai.
Mm.
And I mean, he's expensive, and I hope that he goes down a smidge because he's a prime target.
The duality as well is scarce this year. So if you're going to have a guy like this that's premium with that duality, it's going to be pretty helpful as well.
Yeah. I mean, if you're a Broncos fan, I mean, everyone's like, maybe that's the same as what they did last year. But look, they were 16-0 up, and I don't think they're an 80-minute football team, but it was actually a really enjoyable game to watch, really. I mean, you think that Parra's got the class to run them down, and they did. But the Broncos showed some good signs. Like, I mean, if those who had the absolute big balls to start David Mead, he had a great game. He looked fast. He was running with venom. There's some things to look at in the Broncos and go, maybe if it's not the Eels, like maybe if it's the Bulldogs or maybe if it's Manly, they could get over the line. Like, who are they playing this week? The Titans. If the Titans don't, I thought the Broncos played better than the Titans.
Yeah. I thought Milford looked good as well, boys. I thought, believe it or not, I thought he was pretty influential out there. He set a couple up, got a couple line break assists, made a line break himself. If he could make a big difference to how they go this year. But a couple of other ones worth mentioning. Dylan Brown didn't do much, boys. 39 points for Dill Brown, which is a bit of a letdown. Mitchell Moses, 55. Obviously, plenty hurt by Lodge. I actually thought, I said this in the chat earlier as well, I thought Tessie New looked really good running the ball. He looked like he was a bit of a handful whenever he took the runs. I didn't pay too much attention to what he was doing in D, whether he was getting a bit lost
in the body. He looks bigger. He looks bigger, and he was running heaps.
So I didn't start with Tessie, but he is someone I might look at getting him before the rises, depending on how he goes this week. But I think he could offer a bit of value. But I thought Osako played pretty good as well. I thought, he was someone I had a look at in the preseason. Obviously, expecting him to play fullback and the goal kicking. I thought he looked busy. Obviously, didn't get any attacking stats and only 42 points. But I managed to avoid him and got away with it this week. But I can see him doing well throughout the year potentially after.
What do you think of the Eels and their switch of size in their second rowers and halves? They look fucking average as shit, mate. Like, they're really. I was surprised Matto got to 67 because I didn't see him at all in the game, and he updated nicely, but mate, they look bad.
Yeah, I don't get it personally. I think they got away with this one purely through the injuries. Personally, I don't think there was much else for it. Obviously, Reid Marnie had a massive game in Paulo as well, and Fergo ended up causing a bit of trouble for him as well. But I don't think it was quite right on Friday at all. They need to change something there.
Yeah, they changed it in the off-season because they liked playing on that side more, but they didn't look more threatening. I'll give you that much. They looked like it wasn't natural to him, especially Lane. He was playing like he was on the other side of the field, just from what you saw. And, I mean, does anyone remember seeing Brown at all do anything in the game? Like, everyone's saying tip him for a big year, and, like, he's one of the most attacking and brilliant ball-running, 5/8 of the game, but he was nowhere on the game.
Yeah, they were lacking something. I'm not entirely sure what it was, but, it was definitely missing on there, despite them getting the win. moving on to the next one. Was the first game on the Saturday was Warriors Titans, and I didn't actually catch a heap of this game, boys. Anyone watch this one?
I watched it. Yeah, I watched it. The Warriors were all over him. I think at no point during the game did the Titans look like they were what everyone expected them to be, like pushing for the 8, maybe earlier. Mate, to look at the difference that who's the old mate went from Manly? AFB.
Yeah.
The difference he makes, like having a quality front row like him in a team, it just straightened them up and they went straight down the middle. The halves looked better. Like everyone's like, oh, Cody Nicarima and CHT, you don't know if they're going to be any good halves. All they needed was a front row like AFB leading the way, because they actually, I reckon the Warriors are going to make the 8 after that performance. I know it's only one game, which is very presumptuous, but I thought they looked a heck of a lot better than the Titans and some of the other teams that they were organised. They looked calm. They didn't the Warriors look like they're unstable and you just don't know what they're going to do, very unpredictable. They look controlled. And you look like Nicarima, Tohu, AFB, Sirenum was great. A great performance. A great performance by the Warriors. They look great.
Yeah, I think AFB
was it AFB though, or was it LAM?
Leeson. He's fucking underrated as shit, mate. He's a great front rower. He looked great too. He's got punch.
Mate,
he's got punch runs, mate.
I think he scored his highest score of his whole career last week.
59, mate. He nailed it. No, he was good. AFB was good. Tohu was great.
I'm trying to figure out who Bogan's got a bigger crush on, Leeson Armel or Zach Lomax. I'm undecided.
Well,
Lomax.
Leeson Armel is just because it's the running joke, and I love a meme. But I'm glad to see that Leeson's back, and he's hopefully can stay injury free, and hopefully this is a big year for Leeson.
Yeah, Titans looked weird. They kind of looked like they were just on about 70%, 60%. The outside backs sort of seemed like they were going well. But, I mean, I saw Tino go up and cop one, and he had a bit of a blood mouth, and he was, copping it. They were really, stepping up to Tino, and Fafita was quiet. Mo seemed like he was punching through all right, but they just didn't really seem any different to the Titans of last year to me. They didn't seem like they'd improved any.
Yeah, I mean, apart from Proctor, they don't have many old heads in the pack. You got Peachy there, who you wouldn't really be much of a leader in a forward pack. But, I mean, they got Wallace there, I suppose. But, yeah, these guys like Tino and even Big Mo and Davey are probably going to get targeted against some more experienced sides and big forward packs, because that's the way to probably beat them. But, as I said, there was plenty of people that started with Big Davey Fafita and Tino and Brimo.
And I mean, I tipped Titans. I tipped them in my tips.
So
it was unexpected, but the Titans showed a lot of moxie. They showed a lot of maturity and good play. I mean, Nathan Brown, he's good for that as a coach. He just gets them organised, and he's kind of like a fringe 8 kind of coach, he just gets them tight in the little fundamentals, and they just played really good in the fundamentals, and they just looked the better team. And I
for me personally, I was a little bit disappointed in the Titans, because most years, Adro, you'd sort of know it from the past sort of 3, 4, 5 years. It seems that that round one matchup that they always have is against the Raiders. They generally play on the Gold Coast against the Raiders, and it's always a big scoring game. There's 50, 60 points in it. And I just thought, being the Titans with who they did sign, I thought this was a game where they had 30 or 40 points in them against the Warriors team. And it was completely, obviously, the opposite, which we can see. But that surprised me big time.
Yeah, it's surprising. I reckon they'll be better for this week, because I think he's going to be the kind of coach that, addresses that, But, I mean, you got 60 out of Tino, which is probably at 500K, which was worth it. And even Fafita at 60 in his 500s was probably okay. But as a Titans fan, I think you probably were expecting a bit more, and hopefully they need to lift.
I think the good thing from me as someone that doubted Tino was he actually played 65 minutes. I wasn't entirely sure what sort of minutes he'd play. So all of a sudden he becomes an interesting one because he didn't do much else on the park apart from his base score, really. But with 65 minutes, there's going to be weeks where he does a bit of damage. I think they just got found out by a better side. At one point, boys, I was looking at starting...
He looked up for the challenge, Tino, but he just kept getting whacked by the likes of bloody...
I saw the one Hiku put on him as well. Hiku got him a good one.
Oh, yeah.
But at one point I was considering starting Fogarty, Kelly, Fafita, all that, and that left edge, and I'm sort of glad I didn't now. I dodged a bullet there. But, I think, Joshy, plenty of upside in the Titans side. If they can get it right, there will be those games where they have some big ones. I'm expecting them to bounce back next week, and Brimson could be a big part of that. He got some late scoring points, which sort of helped owners there, but... as I said, you start with these guys from round one. There wasn't anything probably that bad to jump off straight away. Let's see how they go against Brisbane next week.
Yep, fair enough. Second game, what do we have? The Roosters.
Yeah, well.
Yeah, this was a massacre.
All right, and the final game on the Saturday night.
Well, where do you start? It has to be with James Tedesco, doesn't it?
I've just got to go, boys. I'll join back in next week.
Teddy.
Fuck Tedesco.
I mean, if we're being honest, it looked like he was going to drop a try assist and go down in points. To be quite honest, I was surprised heavily that he went up. I was dumbfounded really that he went up in points. But he was definitely going to be in the mid, just over 100. So we knew it. 3 tries, you're never going to end up under that. You had to start with him, even on the price tag.
No, and I think it was after seeing Pappen and Latrell, I was sort of hoping for the best, but definitely didn't expect this. But as I said, sort of before the show, Ados, by half time, I'd put the C on someone not playing because it looked like he was in for a big day. And funnily enough, I think I was telling everyone when we did our review of centre wings in the preseason that you couldn't start with BMOS. He's too expensive. Don't go near him. BMOS is a Munster. BMOS is a Cook. BMOS is a whoever. And look what he's gone and done there. But points everywhere in that Chook's outfit. Obviously, they absolutely hammered Manly, and it was got pretty ugly pretty quickly. I was pretty disappointed, boys. I sort of hoped that the Chooks would put some points on him, and as a result, I played Lamb. And he did sweet fuck all. He scored 26 points in a team that put nearly 50 on a side. But Crichton was good. Takiaho was a bit of a concern with his minutes. I think they just sort of took him off as they were cruising a bit. But he got a late try assist, so he got a bit of junk there to Angus, which was pretty good.
Put him back on too because the kicking was going awry and he was hitting them. So
how good was Teddy's kick?
Teddy's kicking.
It was a beauty.
But Tapanua,
it's kind of like the way he kicks. I hope that he fucks like that too. He's too successful. I hope that he's a dud root and he can't kick goals.
Maybe.
No, he's my captain, but
there could be a correlation there. I kick goals.
Well, I'll tell you what, boys. Like one thing I'll say about this Roosters outfit in this game, we're so used to sort of talking about the Roosters down their left-hand side. It seems as much as they're lethal down both. That seemed to be where they went the most because Keary obviously had that seniority there. They did not go to the left-hand side whatsoever in this game. Fucking, what's old mate Ranger's name? Brad fucking... What in the Manly side, the centre?
Oh, Parker.
Brad Parker.
Brad, yeah. His defending was absolutely atrocious.
But who was he defending on? Manu, mate. He's twice the size.
Mate, look, it was just... Every time they went right, they scored, and it was just ridiculous. It was just an easy day out for them. So I was actually pretty happy with Crichton. Obviously, he got that junk try there at the end, which we spoke about. But even still, he was, he sort of hit a good score before then altogether. Anyway.
Yeah, it's a bit of a bummer that he's out for a week. I think he's a hold personally, but he's like everything that you hoped for from Maddo, Crichton was.
Yeah, look, definitely a hold for me because I'm that fucked up elsewhere. I've got to change other positions. So,
but you'd be happy if you bought Takiaho. You'd be obviously happy if you had Tedesco. I brought Tupanua. I think he finished 70s or something. I took him on a punt. I know he scored a try, but you took Satili knowing that he had the potential to score a try.
How many goals did Takiaho kick?
3 or 4 maybe.
So maybe. Who kicked the others? Kieran
had a go, and then Teddy missed a few.
Yeah, Teddy missed a couple. Yeah.
They gave Teddy more than one kick.
Yeah. Number 2.
There you go. And he's still on 162, for fuck's sake.
Yeah. Lost points kicking. I mean, anyway, but they looked really good, mate. They really did. But they got some injury concerns. So if you're a Takiaho owner or a forwards owner, it probably spells a good ownership for this week as well, because they're bringing like Butcher and they got Lussick coming in at dummy half, so it's going to be big minutes. And who's that Ranger that plays for Queensland? He got big minutes last week. I know a couple took a punt on him. Collins, Lindsay Collins.
Did J-Dub end up getting charged for that, whatever it was? Did he end up
No.
He's free. Yeah. He escapes weirdly.
I think he got
Betty Mug.
I think he got contrary conduct or something, so he got like a $1,200 fine or whatever it was. But yeah, no, it wasn't officially charged to get suspended.
And on the Manly side, boys, Jakey Trbojevic sort of a bit of a throwback. Most of his points in base, which was good, but well beaten side. There wasn't many highlights. Tapau only played 40. I think it was around 45, 50 minutes. So thought he might have possibly found a few extra minutes out there. Maybe just a bit of early season fitness isn't there just yet. And the other big one possibly was Cherry. Obviously, only scoring 28.
Drafts, because as soon as Cleary went, I took Cherry. And mate, there's been rumours over the years that he's just a flat track bully like Moses. And what proof when he goes up against quality opposition like that? He just, as a captain, on how much is he getting? 1.25 a year. What a disgrace! What a fucking disgrace.
So yeah,
terrible.
I don't think they can afford to put.
Tell us what you really think.
I don't think they can afford to put someone like Tommy Turbo in the centres when he comes back. I think there's just no chance they're that bad of a football side. Dylan Walker's not a fullback. They've got so many problems everywhere else across the park. They can't afford to play around with their one of the most important positions. So anyway,
injuries too.
What's that?
They got a few injuries too, so they got to bring in that Cade Cust and.
They signed Lawton as well, didn't they?
Yeah, so I don't see much of an uptick for them, unfortunately.
No, they're going to struggle, I think, at times this season. Jetty, shout out to Jetty's in the chat as well, boys. I've just noticed he's jumped in, so well done on the big score again, Jetty. We shouted you out a little bit earlier, but massive, mate. Well done on that one.
Yeah, good job, mate.
Penny Cows, boys. This was an interesting one. I think it started... I think at half time, was it 6 or 8-0 or something? And Cowboys were sort of just hanging in there, and Penrith was just so frustrating to watch. They weren't executing well. They weren't taking advantage of the field position that they had. Eventually, the straw broke in the camel's back, and they finished strong, but they left a lot of points out on the field. That said, heaps of guys in their side. Absolutely just Supercoach relevant. Obviously, Cleary updated nicely from what he finished on, but tonned up. Edwards nearly tonned up. To'o was absolutely massive. Luai was huge again. They just, they picked off pretty much where they left off by the end of the game, and it's going to be interesting to see how they go, boys. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, look, I mean, you look at those top 5 players there for Penrith, and they're all chances to have in your team. Obviously, Dylan Edwards with the calibre of players at fullbacks, maybe an outside chance, but I know plenty of people went To'o in the end, and Luai a solid 6, and Isaiah Yeo just picked up where he left off last year. Basically, he was huge in the centre of the park there. I actually loved what I saw from Isaiah Yeo. He played that little bit more of a 5/8 role in the centre of the park, or that lock role to perfection,
Yeah, who knew he could play? Oh, he was so good at ball play. He was throwing some passes, so there could be some attack in him.
Yeah, well, look, I mean, I've always been a fan of him going back a few years ago because I always thought he was probably the fastest second rower in the game. Like, you get him in open space, I think he is the fastest second rower in the game. Look, yeah, they've just got points all across this team. They're a little bit clunky here and there. The Cowboys definitely had a good slide defence going, so they couldn't find too much out wide. But, mate, this was just one of those games where the straw that broke the camel's back. They had all the possession. They had all the field position. There was never going to be any other result. It just is what it is. And, the Cows, obviously a lot of talk about Taumalolo and his minutes and how he can be. Look, Toddy Payton, he's got a huge job. I actually rated him a chance this year to
Come
make
to the Raiders, Lolo.
What's that, sorry, mate?
I was like, Lolo, come to the Raiders, mate.
Oh,
I'll take you, mate.
Absolutely. He's going to be a gun in any team he goes into, but I'm just not too sure what's going up there in North Queensland because I actually, you look at their team on paper, and you can say this about any NRL team, but these guys just aren't reaching their potential. They aren't playing as good as they can. It's a simple.
Yeah, I mean, I'll say one thing. Even if you want to say all your big speeches about, I'm going to conserve Lolo because we've got another 7 years of him, well, manage your time then that when the game's in the balance and the important parts of the game, that's when he's on the field. You know what I mean? Like when the Cows still had a chance of, still in the game and the deficit wasn't huge and they could have got back in it. Lolo was on the bench. He was on for another 20 minutes.
Yeah.
So he comes back on when the game's dead. You can't, if you want to reduce his minutes, you cannot just play him dead minutes. You can't play him dead minutes. Make it quality over quantity, but it's got to be quality.
Well, it was interesting. Like, I watched a little bit of the presser just out of curiosity, and he sort of said he didn't like the effort from Lolo at times as well. He was questioned on the minutes and said that.
What a fucking spoon.
So that's a real interesting one there with Lolo, obviously.
But, I mean, here's a question for you both. If you had Lolo, would you just bloody sell him? Sell.
Supercoach wise, or?
Yeah, Supercoach.
I mean, it's a big. You've started with him for a reason. I think you have another look. They play St. George.
It's obvious that it's messed up.
They play St. George this week. He did get 50 minutes, and he didn't do a lot with that time on the park. He only had 30 points in base. So I don't know what's going on there. He's got to be one of your 4 trades in the next 2 weeks. They play St. George this week. Let's have another look. They were up against a pretty strong forward pack, but
I'd keep him.
Keep him?
It's a hard call. Like, if you got Cookie,
I'd keep the faith. Yeah.
If you started with Cookie and Lolo and possibly Appy, you're in a world of hurt at the moment.
Yeah, you pay premium for these guys, and you're getting 60 combined. I mean,
well, Appy,
it's not a game. It's not a game of snoozing.
Appy's the one who annoyed me because after Friday night's game to get him in, I dropped Little, I dropped Connor Watson, and I dropped David Mead to create the cash. And Appy comes out and fucking does what he done. Everyone else has fucking scored 60s and 70s. And
I had Appy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was not expected from Appy. I think
I didn't think Tyrone May'd take minutes off him.
Yeah, and I mean
the injury, whatever it was.
It's like Ivan thinks we can't do everything the same as we did last year. Let's get rid of Ansel. Let's get the Ferrari on the wing. Let's not just play Appy. Let's get Tyrone May on for his tackle breaking and his ball play. He's just trying to do things differently. And I think, with Appy and his injury concerns, I don't know. I mean, he did the wrist, and I don't know if that's why he went off, but I sold Appy. I don't need to see any more of that when I've got 80-minute playing hookers for $300K that are going to make me money. And, I can upgrade Lodge to Paulo because I can go from Appy down to
Yeah, I don't know what's going on. The Skype is fucked out, so just hold on a sec.
It's your my hero.
You should be back now.
Oh, good. Okay.
First,
Do you want to
guys,
keep singing there, Adro?
Yeah, you're everything that
Yeah, sorry about that. The sound was on Joshy's Skype line, and we've lost Josh, so...
we got to get off Skype, do
Yep.
we? Yeah, righto. I think we've had enough of Skype in the last
Yep.
few weeks. Anyway, I think some other interesting ones, Ados. I don't know where we got cut off there, bud, but Lanu was someone, I think once I talked to you about this before the show, once I realised I was going to loop Teddy, I started dumping some cheapies that I had in the front row. So I got off Lanu, I got off Utoka Manu because I was concerned they might score less than 20 points, and I wanted to try and
Lanu looks good. Don't be too allured by it because there was an Eisenhuth injury, so that probably inflated him a smidge. But at his price, there's no huge risk, and the only risk is maybe if you're looping, and it could be a 20s game, but it made him look good on the field, didn't he?
I mean, you compare him to someone, like these other guys like Hetherington and stuff like that. They don't have as much money to make if they're going to score similar. I know they're going to get bigger minutes, but yeah, he looked really good. I think Ogden is possibly going to be maybe one of the nicer ones, maybe, but I thought he was good, but you're right. Obviously, Eisenhuth copping the HIA, he probably benefited from that. Leota, I thought I had close eyes on Leota. He didn't end up coming to play the minutes I thought he might have played. He only played 33 minutes, mate, which I find a little bit strange.
Yeah, but I think everything went as expected. Lolo probably a little bit down, and probably Luai with the big shocks, I reckon.
Yeah. So, anyway, plenty of work to do on the Cowboys side of the field. And obviously, Charlie Staines. Have they got us back here? Charlie Staines was a big one. And we knew this before the start of the season that can't hear us again.
Yeah.
No, you should be live.
Fucking
We
Staines.
got one bloke, Bass. Hello, maybe his comments are a bit delayed.
Staines. You might be a Ferrari, mate, and who scores tries, but you can still take a dummy half run once in a while, mate. Like, gee, Christ.
Yeah, look, there was plenty of people that started with him. I think it was too much of a risk not to, given the style of the draw. Ados, I thought he'd find at least one meaty.
He nearly scored one.
He did. He nearly scored a couple, I reckon, but he dropped the ball. He got a couple of bad passes as the last
He's got a
pass.
bit of hammers about him to me.
And what was that?
He reminds me of the hammer.
Yeah, he does. And like we said, everyone knew he wasn't going to be the base. He's not a Mansour winger. He's going to be the finisher. There's going to be weeks he does this. Unfortunately, it was this week. And there'll be weeks where potentially this week against the Dogs, he hopefully bags a double. Maybe gets 70, 80, 90.
Still going to play him.
He's a matchup guy, right? Like, I wouldn't have played him if they were playing Melbourne, but I'm playing him every day of the week. They play the Cows or the Dogs. So
yeah, I'm going to play him this week and hope for a pie. And I think sometimes you've got to play those people that have got those high ceilings and the stupidly low floors. We got low floor last week, but he's a great chance against the Dogs. So it's a gamble that pays off. It's like a SIVO. He's basically like a SIVO, where you've got a ceiling there that it allures you into picking him.
And my opinion of him, Ados, is if he can pump out 100, 150k, I'll probably happily get off him because he'll be a transition. He's at 300k. If he can ton up in the next couple of weeks, hopefully against the Dogs, they play Melbourne in round 3, Manly round 4. If he can find a couple of tries on the weekend and score a 90 plus, he's going to be in line for a couple of good rises, regardless of what happens against the Storm. And hopefully something good against Manly, and you can get off him quickly because I think that's all he'll be. I can't see him being a keeper. Obviously, he's just going to be a quick
dump. This week, will you jump off?
If he flops,
yeah,
I don't think so. I mean, it'd depend. There'd have to be something good at offer. Like if Mead goes a good again this week and he's got a big negative BE, maybe I have to think about it because you're going to bank cash and make a bit of cash.
Maybe for a Staines to Fergo because their draw opens up after Melbourne this week, and I think that's a feasible option, but you've got to have something, like you said, it's got to be worth it. And if it's not, you just,
I think the hard one with that trade for me as well, because I dumped a few guys when I wanted to loot Teddy, I've now got to fix a couple of things up. So I've probably got a few other issues. So if you can make that trade, I think it's a really good point to go to a Fergo if he flops and that sort of thing. But I've got some other priorities, I think, in the next couple of weeks, unfortunately.
Juicy.
Yes. Moving on, Bogues. Was it the Sunday after this?
Raiders, Tigers.
With your boys, Ados.
I'll tell you what.
Slow start, mate.
Yeah, slow start. It was a very frustrating watch. I mean, the Raiders start a lot of games really slow, but it's like our attack takes a while to warm up every year, and it's not going to happen in week 1, 2, 3, 4. We're going to take a while to warm up. It was a clinical sort of second half performance. I thought the Tigers defended well in the first half. Who are my shiners for me? I thought Joe Tuppeny is coming of age. I just think he is. I mean, I think he's up like Murray level for how good a lock he is.
Mm-hmm.
Does everyone agree with me? Like, I just love him as a player. I love Big Joe. I just love him so much. He's such a great player. That fend he's got on him, and he hits with so hard. Like, he hurts him when he hits him.
Yeah, look, I must admit, I sort of have overlooked him a bit since he left Newcastle. I'm probably still a bit filthy about how it all went down. But, yeah, I mean, when he's on, he's someone that stands out on the field. He's such a handful, as you said. He's got the offload. He breaks tackles.
Yeah.
I did not realise he scored 100 points until I was having a close look this afternoon.
Would have been a great draft pickup for those who grabbed him, because they can see what his potential was.
Absolutely, great draft pickup and massive potting classic if you did happen to start with him at 5%. I think the problem with it, and it's fairly well known, Ados, is that forward pack at Canberra has so many mouths to feed. We know guys like CHN and Horsburgh are out.
I think everything that you saw this week is only going to get worse for all of those players, because there's going to be a minute share. That, I mean, we're in the chat tonight, everyone's saying Ryan James, and I know there's that, a little bit of romance about the fact that he's been out for 2 years and he came back and scored a try and he looked good. But the fact of the matter is that Horsburgh was an up-and-comer and looking at one of the best in the league, and you ask everyone, if you take off-field aside how good CHN is, I think that James at best could jag a 17 and maybe get 20 minutes a game, or be an outside of the 17 mentor on the rest of the team.
100%. And then you lose a Papali at Origin time, or a Louis, or someone gets injured, he's a great guy to come in and fill a hole for a few weeks or whatever it might be.
I think he's a depth player, and because we've lost a couple of real influential players, he came on, he had a good game. And those who might have started with him, I think if you just ride him, I think he's going to get this week definitely probably get the same sort of minutes. He's up against soft opposition ish, and he might. Sorry, Josh, and he might score well again. But I don't think he's a long-term hold, and you're not going to get him to 500k at all.
If you can just if you can get a 40 or a 50 this week, if that's maybe optimistic, depending on his minutes. I mean, he played 41 minutes on the weekend, Ados. I don't know. I didn't follow that game that closely, whether that was purely because of the outs. But if he could get a 40 or a 50 this week, he's going to get a couple of good rises. So you probably quick pump and dump.
Yeah, they gave Louis less minutes, like 17 minutes, and I don't imagine that they're going to do that every week. Ricky's kind of like one of those ones that 1 week Papali starts from the bench and he gets 40, and he's kind of weird like that. So it might have been James this week, but he could be the 17 guy next week.
Yeah. And even you look at Josh Papali, mate, as another example, what his minutes went. 48 minutes. That's just typical. So anyone that started with him, this is always the sort of thing that Big Papa can do. He just didn't have any attacking stats with him, but.
Yeah, Rapana looked actually really good. He's a winger, I think, more than a centre, and he looked up for the game. I don't know if that's going to be something that happens every week, but he looked on. He looked fit.
It's interesting, right? He's normally a real big base guy. In previous seasons, he's doing heaps. His base wasn't that good, but he scored a double. But he looked keen.
He looked attacking. He looked And see, the difference between someone like him and, say, Staines is that Rapana goes looking for dummy half run. Yeah. He looks to get involved in play. He looks to get offloads, and he'll go up and tackle. So 100%. If you want someone who could be a 60 or an 80 or a 20, he's a better gamble that he's going to at least put effort in and give you a chance at a 40 or 50. You know, like he's a trier. And from the Raiders, I mean, Hudson Young, I picked him up in a couple of drafts. He had a wow of a game. But actually, considering what he did, 79 wasn't as high as I thought he'd be. He busted the line, he scored a try.
50 points in base, mate, played 80 minutes. Again, it's just like, who misses out when CHN's back? I don't know. I mean, Ricky's a big fan of him. I know that, but like, yeah, and you know, he likes Whitehead 80 minutes. He played Bateman 80 minutes. I mean, is it Young's spot to lose? And then when he does, it's possibly CHN's once he's back. But
I think the way that Young played, he's doing everything in his power to make sure that he holds that spot for big minutes. So it'll be I think. That's premiership type behaviour.
It's not a bad problem to have as a coach.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Who would you own in there? Maybe James because of his cheap price. Maybe Rapana if he scores well again this week. You know.
What's Raps worth roughly? 370. So he's sort of.
370. So you know, it's like a him Fergo type thing. You know, but
just quickly on the Raiders side of the field, Georgie Williams was really good. I'm a massive George Williams fan, mate. I think he's just going to keep getting better and better. I think he's one of the English imports in the halves. It's going to do well.
I like him. I think he's good. He's kind of like, it's weird for a 7 to be a yo-yo. You know, and he can have some low games in him where he just sort of, you're like, I never saw George Williams today. Yeah, it happens with Whiten as well. You know, we have halves like that. So George was good this week, and he had the goal kicking. He was up for the game. You know, good score. But I wouldn't be surprised if he has an off game really soon.
Yeah, I think just from a watching footy perspective, not just Supercoach, I enjoy watching Georgie. And I think that as not Supercoach relevance, but just in general, Sebastian Chris looks a great player once Croker or whatever happens there. I thought he looked really good, even though he didn't score that well. But but on the Tigers side, mate, probably a lot of relevance in. We had Jacob Little, Dane Laurie were a couple of popular guys that did quite well. I think obviously Little scored a try, and the bench makeup is a little bit different this week. But you know, he still was pretty good, and Laurie I think was really good in a well beaten side. 47 points from basically a guy that has only played a handful of first grade games. I think he looked really good.
Yeah, I mean, Laurie is one of those ones where it looked like a heck of a lot better than it scored on the board. It wasn't a worse score, really. I mean, for someone at his price point, but you'd love to see him streak away and score a try or something, just get a 80 or 100. He kind of like seems like he could almost be a premium fullback if things went his way, but he's just not in a good enough team. Kind of like Tedesco when he played for the Tigers, but until he went to a good team.
Well, it reminds me of, was it maybe like a Nickel Clockstad, was it last year or whatever, where it's going to be hard to figure out when to get off him, or there'll be, there's those guys, they perform well, and you're like, oh, you probably think about Mann and Lomax last season, people thinking about when do I get off him, but I feel like this is going to be a guy where it's going to be hard to know when to get off him. Maybe it'll be before a buy or something, but I can see him be someone that makes some good cash and it'll be hard to trade him out. I mean, it could go the other way and he might flop, but...
Yeah, but I mean, he's a fullback player. Like we looked at Val when there was potential that he would be in... if you can pick a fullback in centre wing, and then they've got a Supercoach friendly game, it's usually a good, good thing. So I think he's definitely fills that bill.
Yeah. I think Nofo got a meaty as well, 59. If he doesn't score a try next week, he could be in for a big drop as well. And they got a couple of harder games with the Chooks and then us. And then Parra in the next few weeks.
Everyone always said that about Nofaluma, is that if the tries dry up, it's big trouble. I mean, he has got a good, base for runs, but imagine he scored without that try. So it's got...
Jimmy Roberts isn't exactly great for a pass either. So Jimmy Roberts is now out on the right with him. So we'll have to see what happens with Nofo. But, yeah. Anyway, I think...
Concerns about him. Luciano looked good.
He was good.
Best player on ground. And, like 63 is not a 100, but in a team that was soundly beat, he looked up for the challenge. And, I mean, he was, he was a handful for the Raiders that day. That's all I noticed, that he was in a battle with Hudson. And I would have given the points to Hudson just because he was in a better team. But in a losing team, Luciano held his own.
Yeah, I think he's a great player. I'm looking forward to seeing how he evolves over the next few years for sure.
Yeah, and Little, 71 with a try. I actually didn't like the way he looked. He took a few steps out of dummy half, and he seems like he's slow passes. But 71 you can't argue with. And, I mean, he does have Mbai on the bench. So at his price, you hold him and you just ride him as long as you can. He might become someone who's not a player you don't play in. But at the moment, he's got a hard opposition this week, hasn't he? Roosters.
Yeah, Chooks this week.
So he might even be considered for not a play this week. But you'd think against the Chooks he's going to get at least 40 tackles,
Yeah.
So with Crichton out, he could be a safe play just for a 40.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think there's a bit of rain and all that sort of stuff around Sydney this weekend as well. So it might be, a bit more simple footy out there and a bit more bread and butter with the base this weekend potentially. But
yeah.
And the last game of the round was one that I didn't watch at all. And it was Cronulla and the Dragons. Cronulla ended up run away with it. I lie, actually. I think I turned it on for maybe 10 minutes there, and Dragons scored a couple tries and looked like they were going to make a comeback. And then as I followed it after that, they sort of just fell off. But, where do you start on this one, Ados?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's one of those ugly old games with teams that I think are probably not the highest quality. I think the Dragons, it took a while to warm up. They're kind of like one of those teams that are stuck getting done and then they come back with a wet sail, but not quite enough to win the game. The Sharks didn't look too bad to me personally. I thought William Kennedy had probably his first, the best game in his first grade career. He looked really good. He ran the ball back strong. He was there in attacking plays. Dukes has always been, if you ever had Dukes, if he's not injured, he's actually a fair player to hold in Classic and draft. Yeah, he looked good. It was just an ugly old thing. I mean, the people that took the punt on Terrell for Imiono, he looks like he's going to hold his lock spot. And he didn't do too much wrong in the game, really. I mean, for a lock. And Dufty, not that anyone's going to have him at a fullback only, but Dufty, he's the kind of player that makes a whole bunch of mistakes, but that's like a -3. But in attack, he can slice through 5 defenders and score a try. So
that try he scored was phenomenal. I actually saw that one. That was
phenomenal try. And Paul Vaughan, you and I said that maybe we ranked him higher and said that with the immaturity of that pack, maybe he stands up. And I think that was a solid in the wet. It was a wet game, 73. So I think that in a dry track, maybe some of those scores could be a little bit higher. But it was just a bit of an ugly game, and I didn't actually own anyone from any of those games.
Yeah, I think a few might have had Moylan, who scored 52. I think he had his hand in a couple or at least one, which was promising. I guess he could have potentially done sweet fuck all, but he pumped out a 52. McCulloch, mate, I know he's not probably overly relevant, but at 460k at hooker, maybe more so in drafts. He played 80 minutes, 64 in base. You know that's pretty standard from Mako, but good to see him doing that.
Yep.
What else? Ramian, obviously, will be missing for a few weeks after the high shot, was it? I heard about. I didn't actually see it. Did you see it? Was it bad?
Oh, I mean, he went in with a stiff arm right in the fucking side of the head, so he deserves his 3 weeks. I'm actually really spewing because I've got Talakai in a bunch of drafts, and I thought he'd be back.
Is he not? Is he even in the 20?
No, it's going to be
whatever.
It's going to be someone else.
Did he make the bench?
Hey?
Did he make the extended bench even? He must be injured still.
He's injured still. Yeah. So what a kick in the nads that is. So.
And I know a couple of people possibly went Bird. He didn't do a great deal. I obviously didn't see the game, but he did sweep fuck all, which was interesting.
Yeah, I mean, he kind of looked in the game sort of like he was up to the challenge, but only to a certain point. Like he might be still favouring the knees.
Yeah.
So I think he's a terrible buy. I think it's going to take him like 10 weeks to hum along and maybe do his potential. So if you've got Bird and you're looking for a candidate, I don't reckon you're going to see much better from him.
Maybe if he bottoms out a little bit at like finds sub 300, you could look at him as a possible matchup. Maybe get you through a bye. He plays the first bye as well, but we'll have to see what happens. Obviously,
he goes into the back row. If he gets confident with
that as well.
Yeah, that could be an option. But and he's at a low price, but he didn't do float my boat.
No, that fair call. And Chatty Townsend produced at 350k. I know that he shouldn't have been too highly owned, but he was one of those guys that got a little bit of a mention at times. People were looking at him and even Lukey Brooks. I can't remember how Brooks scored, but 64 points for anyone that went in, but ultra pot at 3% anyway. So
yeah, sad the SC experience went Luke Brooks.
Is that probably where I heard all that chat? Probably.
Yeah, and I mean, I don't know if that's going to work out for you in the long run, or Chad Townsend, to be quite honest. But I mean, if you're looking for a 300, I just went Sam Walker and went enough. But if you're going up and you wanted someone in the 300s, you'll take those scores, won't you, from a 300? It's
interesting because they're both goal kicking halves as well, and they still only scored what they did. But anyway, I think that's enough. Good wrap, Ados. Fair summary, and looking forward to round 2, mate.
Yep.
All right, fellas, on to next week's games.
All right, and a bit of a cracker, I guess, to start the round off. It'll be interesting to see how Para start in this one. They've obviously got to start a whole lot better. They won't be able to afford to do what they did against Brisbane. But first game of the round on Thursday night at Bankwest will be Para and Melbourne. And doesn't look like, just having a quick look there, Ados, there's any changes to the squads from what I can gather. But thoughts on this one?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a tough assignment for the Eels. I think against the Broncos, they were very underwhelming. And I think they're going to really find out what they're up against this year if they want a premiership this week. Because Melbourne, they just, I mean, I've tipped South to win it because they were up against Melbourne in round 1, and I think they're going to warm up to be much, much better. But, mate, I've never seen a team that just, you always, over the years, you're like, oh, yeah, they've got Cameron Smith. And then they just look so good. And they don't even have Harry Grant in there. And then Brandon Smith goes in. Like, any team would take Brandon Smith, wouldn't they? No wonder they're going like other clubs are trying to get more money, because they're both like top tier, wonderful hookers.
They should be playing each other at the international level. Really.
Yeah, and I mean, someone like Pappenhausen, just the absolutely meteoric rise. For you to be able to say that someone is almost as good as Teddy, you should pat yourself on the back, son.
And in his second or third proper full-time year, comparisons to Slater, they let go of Drinkwater, who was a great player for obvious reasons now. But it's amazing. I actually I tipped South. I thought, life after Cameron Smith, maybe there'll be a chink in the armour. They maybe showed it a little bit late, and that's probably more that South is still a quality football side, but they were.
I thought on the night against Souths, I thought that South's pack actually looked a bit small, and they looked like they got rolled over very heavily by Melbourne. I don't think that'll happen against Para. I think Para has an absolutely outstanding pack. I thought that some of their best players were off the bench. I thought Oregon Kafusi was fantastic. I thought Papal and Isaiah Papali'i was absolutely dynamic off the bench.
I'm liking him for a bit of a sleeper in drafts, possibly. Not so much classic, but yeah.
Paulo was fantastic. Madison and Lane, I think they had the wrong sides. Nathan Brown was everything. And Mahoney, everyone knew that he was probably behind Grant as the next, Queensland hooker. But, matey, he looked like he was every bit of class, in that game, especially in the second half.
Yeah, absolutely. And those young halves are going to have to stand up for Para if they're going to cause any damage. And that's sort of, I guess, probably been their issue in the past, is that Moses generally goes missing and Brown can't do it all. So, yeah, it was a bit of a concern on last week as well.
I think the Melbourne's backline is just too good, and I think that their halves are just too good. So I think Melbourne will make light work of the Eels. And I mean, you know, in the Melbourne team, you're only looking at Paps. You're looking at some of those who had Brandon Smith will be concerned. I think you have a right to be concerned.
Mate, have you got Pappy?
I've got Pappy. Yeah, I went Teddy and Pappy.
I'm thinking in my head right now. I'm looking at the draw, and the reason I didn't go in after having more pre-season was I looked at the draw, and I saw South, Para, Penrith. I can get him a little bit cheaper. I'm now wondering in my head. I think I've got 80k in the bank, and I think if I go Appy to Brayley, I could possibly go Lamb to. I might be able to go Lamb to, maybe not to Pappy, but
yeah,
God, he was impressive, wasn't he?
I reckon that there are players that are matchup proof. We say that often. You know, people like Crichton, Maddo, Teddy, you know, and they're matchup proof. And I think that the difference between Pappenhausen in the first half of last year and the end of the year is that in the second half of that year, he found his confidence, he found his way in their systems, and he is just absolutely matchup proof. And he turned up against Souths, who we think are a premiership contender, and I don't think that Pap scores bad against anyone.
Well, I looked at him. I had a really close look at him, and I ended up, I think it was just through looking at it too much. I mean, looked at his scores last year. He had regular 30s in him at times, like
early
in the first half of the year, he had a few 30s, and I just sort of thought, you know, if he does this to start the year, it's a good. I can get away from him, and it was just an absolute disaster for me in the end. But he looked really good. He popped up everywhere. The goal kicking is obviously massive, and they just looked really good. So
and he hit those goals pretty well. I think that last year, when you play, you've got to sort of think about players that come in. It's like their first year in the full grade every round, and it does take a little bit of a while for him to get the hang of it, you know. And I think that's the mistake that people would have made with Bird, because it's almost like he's coming back again because he was out for 2 years, you know, like, and he'll be a good player, I reckon, by the end of the year, but he just needed some time to get confident with his leg and knees, and he'll get better as the year goes on. And I think that what happened with Pappenhausen last year is he had to learn full-time footy in them as a fullback for the Melbourne Storm. And I wasn't surprised to see him start the way he did, and I wouldn't be surprised this week if he goes out and tons up again. I reckon he could average in the 90s this year, and I don't see any reason why he won't. He was even just chiming in and hitting try assists, you know, like he's electrifying.
Well, Munster's first try, he was the decoy that was the reason Munster went through. Yeah. He was everywhere. So that one stung me a little bit. I reckon if I didn't score over 1,300 this week, I'd be still seething about him, because I was Teddy and Pap and Turbo most of the off-season. But anyway.
Turbo until he was injured, and I went straight to Pap. I never looked back. Other things from the game is some people took a punt on Nas, and he was a bit concerning. What did he get? 30s?
41, I think, in the end.
Yeah, and there wasn't the minutes really for him. Welsh probably proved to be the fair buy that everyone thought. I think Brandon Smith, everyone sort of lauded him as, you know, he's going to be 70s, but I think that everyone sort of thinks of Brandon Smith at lock, not at hooker. You know, so that was a mistake, and I think people who started with Brandon Smith, that's a mistake they're going to realise in the next couple of weeks, if playing hooker instead of playing lock.
And Smoothie on the bench as well, spelled him for 10 or whatever it was.
Yeah, but he doesn't have that this week because they've taken Smoothie off. Oh, is he?
He's on the 14 at this stage.
Oh, he's still in there. Yep.
It's a funny looking bench, though, even with that Chris Lewis and Eisenhuth. Like, you know.
So you might be. Some people might be regretting the cheese buy as well. So I'd be thinking about that for Nas as well.
Yeah. Sweet. On the Friday, I think the first game on the Friday is us again. I think it's us and
the Warriors.
The Warriors. So this could actually be an interesting one, based on how the Warriors went last week, and I don't know what the odds are showing. probably pairing up pretty evenly at this stage, maybe. Could be an interesting one, Ados.
Well, you tell me what you think. You're the Knights fan. I think it's going to be a great game. I think it's going to be very watchable.
Yeah, look, obviously no KP is massive for us. He's obviously the draw card of our backline, and if we're going to score points, it'll generally be through him. So that's a big out. But and I still think I look at our backline from 1 through to 5, and even 6 with Kurt Mann there. It's a very youthful backline. Not a lot of experience there. So I sort of get concerned about that area, but you can't fault the forward pack. It's a really good forward pack, so I'm looking forward to the battle of the forward packs. But I'm not thinking it's a walkover at this stage. I think the Warriors could definitely win this game. A bit of a danger game.
Yeah, I think definitely from 8 down, including the bench, it's extremely great battle. I think Clemmer, AFB, I think Brayley's a great hooker. I think maybe they probably get a little bit better from him than they're going to get from Egan. But it's a really even match, it could just come down to, if it's dry and who can score more points, on the day, in the backs. It could really become that.
As the bench as well, potentially. It could just be
lost your video for a second there, Brent. Oh, you're back.
You got me. Like you said, I think the Warriors bench is possibly going to cause a bit of punch there. We'll have to see what happens with Watson as well, mate. Obviously, he dropped back to the bench an hour before kickoff, which are you still going to play Watson if he gets named on the bench?
I think I probably would, wait for that team list again. And if I had the luxury of Crichton this week, now that I've got in Brayley and / Paul, I've sort of got 2 players that I'm happy to play. And I might have thought about Watson, but I thought he was dynamic last week. He was great. They looked better when he was on the field. And I think that from what it looked like, it's like they were easing him in maybe body-wise more than anything. Because Suaso Su, I get a D-rection when I watch Suaso Su play. Yeah. I mean, bloke is not interesting at all to watch. Whitey won't start him at 13. Yeah. So
and what about
Connor Watson when he's got the batch fitness? He's up in 13.
Well, he was bouncing off tackles, and I think the first backline move that they played off him, he put Barnett straight through. But yeah, he breaks the tackles. He's a little bit of a pocket rocket, so I'm hoping he can hold it, and we'll see what happens. But I think now
injury, which maybe means that they might lessen his minutes and just go with something that wasn't broke. And kind of make him like their dynamic 14, like to match Jazz Taumalolo.
Yeah, and I think it's been mentioned in a couple of chats and whatever as well. Like obviously the quicker game, little man comes in, tired bodies. He'll still be effective if he only plays 50 or 60.
Yeah, that was why I played him, because I just thought he's going to get 50, maybe 60 minutes. And I'd take Watson at 60 minutes ahead of, say, Little at 60, because Watson's just attacking and he's Supercoach friendly. So, I mean, I'll be playing Watson this week. I won't be scared of playing him. And I reckon, if you want to ask me why I think the Knights will win this week, I think it's because of Watson.
Well, and I reckon we've named Mann and Bradman best. We've got Phoenix Crossland in the extended bench, and also I reckon have a look at Dominic Young has found his way on the extended bench. So there might be a bit of smoke and mirrors here as well, Ados. And I'm interested to see a couple of changes. I mean, Watson could possibly play 6 as well, because I can't see Mann backing up after a potential. I know it hasn't turned out to be as serious as it was, but
it's still four, hasn't it? So
anyway, we'll see what happens.
But I think if he comes off in 14, I'll play him. If he starts at 13, I'll play him, and if he goes in at 6, I'll play him. There's no way I won't play him.
Yeah, same. I'm on him now. I want to have a look last week. Wasn't sure, but happy with it now. The only other thing I want to mention about the pack was Tohu played 80 last week, so he plotted his 60 in base, but he did play 80. So I was a bit surprised by that, especially with their bench. Hogan, are you on the mic or what's going
on? What do you think about the Warriors, Brew?
What do I think about the Warriors? Not a lot, to be fair.
No.
Anyway, it should be a good game. Hopefully,
it'll be a good game.
not wet weather game. So.
Yeah, Central Coast Stadium. So that's the Warriors' home ground now. But with any luck, it'll be dry. I'd love to see these two teams in a dry pack, dry track, and I think Ewan Aiken's out and Pompey's in, and I don't mind Pompey. So I think it's it's going to be a good game. It's going to be a game of the round.
Yeah, cool. And then second up on the Friday, I think it's the battle of the Brisbane teams. Yeah, Titans against
the
Brisbane. So
game of the round.
Not the game of the round. No.
The prime time slot, as it always turns out to be for Brisbane for some reason.
Hopefully a fucking asteroid hits the stadium or something.
Both teams looking to bounce back after last week, especially the Titans, who were really disappointing, and Brisbane obviously didn't go on with it. So Sammy fills in for Brian Kelly, which is a big out. I think Kelly will be missing for 3 or 4 weeks with a fractured hand. Plenty of people that started with him. Ados probably looking at Brian To'o now. So Sammy swaps in there. And apparently David Fafita was actually in hospital a couple of days before the game last week, and still managed to churn out 60. So
playing like rubbish.
Yeah, I didn't actually catch a heap of it, and I'm a big David Fafita fan, but I'll have a good look at him tomorrow on Friday night.
Yeah, he didn't look too great to me. I thought that old mate, the other one, Tino, looked better.
Mm-hmm.
Personally, they just look so underwhelming. But the Broncos, you'd have to think that the Gold Coast get over the top of them at home after a bad start when everyone has high expectations of it. I think they've got quality in every position that's probably better than the quality of the Broncos. Maybe TBJ outs. The only difference. I think TBJ and maybe Ricky would be the only ones that make the Titans team.
Yeah, well, I think Carrigan is a bit of an insane as well, but it'll be interesting.
People Supercoach wise would be thinking, do I play Tessie New after his good 17 runs last week? He's a possibility if you're looking for a reserve, I reckon.
Was his base that good last week?
Yeah.
Wow, I did not realise it was actually that good. It was 30 in base, wow.
But he was running what was the alternative? It was, if you want to, so, some people might be a bit short this week if they had Lodge and Crichton, so I don't think it's a worse play because I don't think that Broncos v Titans the strongest opposition, and the other one is Jordan Ricky. I'm going to have to play him.
Yep.
He didn't really do anything in that game, but he's still 38 odd or whatever, or 40 odd, I don't know.
Look, and I think he's just going to be that kind of. He's not a base like a lot of the back rows are, but he had a similar base to someone like Barnett. Whatever. Anyway, he had just under 40 points in base. That's pretty typical. So you're going to rely on him to do something attacking wise to get some points out of him, and I think we'll see it at times, and this will be a good game for it potentially.
Yeah, to see it. So I'm going to play him. Yeah. I mean, I'd love to see a little bit of mongrel about Ricky. I'd just like to see him just rip in and that's the reason why I prefer Tino over Fafita, because I just think that Tino's more of a competitor. Do you know what I mean? I think that Tino's up for the battle a bit more. He didn't mind punching on with Haas and Origin. Yeah. He just seems like a goer. And I think that Fafita's just a bit more fleety, and he's definitely a premium and he can go on those huge runs. But I can just see Tino being more consistent, being in games and hanging in a bit more. And some people they've held on to David Mead, so he looks like he's held his spot on merit.
Yeah. Who's missed out there? Is it Oates? Obviously, isn't in the side anymore.
But he's playing. He this year he's the back rower.
Yeah.
So
there you go.
He's going to hold his spot.
Maybe some Brimson owners will be looking at a VC for Brimo in this game as well. I'm expecting him to do a little bit better. And maybe a few of those guys, I was interested in Jamal Fogarty. There's plenty of people a lot of teams had Fogarty as well, so plenty of people looking for those guys to bounce back, and it could be a game for it. It could be a few points.
And these games where you'd hope a Meteor might hit it because it's so shit, they can sometimes be high scorers. They can be high scorers for the Supercoach, so there could be some good scores in there.
Yeah, sweet. First game on the Saturday afternoon. Dogs and the Penrith, and
this one
could be a slaughter.
This one could get ugly.
It could be a smasher.
Yeah, it's not looking. If Penrith can start a little bit better than they did last week, you could see, them put 30 or 40 points possibly on the Dogs. The Dogs were pretty ordinary last week. I know it was wet weather footy and that sort of thing, but I still think you just look at the names in that side.
3 p.m. at Bankwest. So it's a day game.
As long as it's not wet.
As long as it's not wet. So I really think that...
Which I think it's possibly going to be pissing down in Sydney on all weekend. I'm looking at it now, Ados. I think it's meant to piss down from Thursday all the way through to next week.
Also, let me ask you this question. Would you play Staines or New if you had them both?
Well, yeah, I just don't think I can, regardless of that weather, like we talk about it, I just don't think I could bear to have Staines in my MTRs and watch this game.
I always fear if as soon as I leave him out, he's going to 150 it.
And he will do it. He has that ceiling in him, doesn't he? There's going to be a game where he gets 3 or 4 tries.
Look, like we said, everyone's really relevant. Some people if you didn't go with Teddy and you went in Edwards, you got 96 last week. You would feel like you saved a legitimate 200k. I really think that Dylan Edwards is a quality fullback, and I think he could average in 70s and be up in the top 5 maybe. Staines has got the potential to go big, but he's always going to be that risk of going low. I don't know if there's as much for Crichton this year. What did you feel about him?
Oh, man, he's got to pass the ball. He squandered a few chances.
Imagine what To'o would do if he got some more passes. But see, To'o is like one of those matchup-proof wingers because he got such a great base. He runs back. He's hungry. He's a little goer. And he's a great buy.
Yeah, I was really happy. He was one of the ones I wanted to start with Kelly and To'o, but I couldn't do both. I ended up going with To'o just because.
And Capwell.
Yeah, I went Capewell as well, and he actually looked really good running those inside lines against the grain as well.
Luai, if you went a Luai instead of a Walker, good buys, because Luai looks like he's in everything. Cleary doing Cleary things. He was never going to be a bad buy. Leota is a bit disappointing for minutes. Happy was odd and 28, and I sold him.
It's interesting again. If it's wet weather footy, potentially Appy's got a little bit more. That's going to kill me this week. That's going to be a hard decision for me.
He could go down. Happy loves an injury too. So I'm just in the first 2 rounds. I'm just super aggressive. So I just look into myself. I'm aggressive by nature, but I just look in myself and just go the aggressive move and just make, because you're going to get price rises. So if Appy's got a 28, I don't know what his BU was. I imagine it's around 58, maybe 60. So he's going to lose money potentially unless he. Yeah,
it's probably going to be a bit. He's nearly 600k. So going into this week, Supercoach starts. It says he's on 126.
Yeah.
Obviously, he's got another game to play, but if he doesn't get a score, he's
going to lose money. So you've got to make those educated guesses whether you jump or you stay. But I think there's a lot of points in Penrith. I think if you bought Capwell, I think you can probably expect, similar every week. I don't think that he's going to be. I don't think you're going to see hundreds out of him, but it's what you look for in that centre wing where you can just guarantee maybe a 50, 60 every week. He won't let you down getting those. And Yo, he played 70 minutes or something, didn't he?
Yeah, Yo was massive as well. Do you think Kate will end up being a keeper, centre wing, final 4?
I think he's going to be able to hold on long enough that maybe. I've got Tor, so I don't even know if this year. Who's the Tigers bloke? Nofaluma. Yeah. I think maybe someone like Tupu. I could go maybe across to a Tupu. If their prices get similar, just because I think that Tupu's base is good for a winger because he runs the ball back so strong, and he's also got that height and try scoring ability. So Tupu's kind of like one of those ones. It's like a To'o, but with the ability to be an attacker as well. So they're just two. A Tupu top is how you run into your finals.
Yeah, for sure, and in teams that score points as well.
Yeah, in teams.
The Chooks score, the Penrith score a lot of points.
But I think that I can see myself him being such a low priority that it could happen many weeks in. You know?
Yeah. So not much happening on the Dogs side. I think Ogden was pretty good last week, considering like there wasn't that many great options. So he played 51 minutes, only 41 points in base. So the PPM was pretty weak. But for 240k, if you start with him, it's not terrible. He's probably going to make a bit of coin, provided he plays 50 again. I don't know exactly.
Is he going to hold it, do you think? Or do you think that they're just like fucking around with Napa and eventually he's going to come back in?
Well, I've heard rumours that Penrith are potentially or someone was interested in Napa, and that will mean Burton can go to the Dogs. So I don't know if that's a reflection of Napa on the outer or what, mate. I'm not entirely sure. It's interesting.
Some of those people that I know, that a lot of people who are an RFM fan, he's jumped in and taken that second row spot.
Yep.
He's someone that I would keep on my radar as like a real uber pod. I think that the people who are like real sort of aficionado players, they just like their little pods. I love those players, the ones that love their Nathan Browns and they love their RFMs, those kind of players who are sort
Luciano's.
of deep under the radar. And I've got an eye. He's a player I watch, and if he can nail down 80 in the second row, he's got that kind of game that interests me. So I'll be interested. I'll keep a watch on him this week. And that's probably it from them, really. People who were silly enough. Some people I know went Waddell. Look how long that lasted for you. 1 week.
Yeah, no, never looked.
It's going to happen.
And Flano will be interesting if Raymond can link up with him potentially as well, if he's going to float on both sides. So
yeah, I think a lot of questions about where will Flano be that good. I think I think the Avarillo just really looks second fiddle, and it's all Flanagan. So if you took a Flano, I think there's a potential that he's going to be the focus point of them for this year until Burton gets there. So you could ride him for quite a while, I reckon. Maybe up to who is there really other than Cleary?
Yeah, none. And he's got the duality. So if you had enough, like a Madden, potentially you have your half sorted for the year. Obviously through buys it's a bit different, but anyway.
Yeah. It could be a bloodbath. There could be a lot of points. So I'd be playing all your Penrith people if you can. I'm going to be playing Linu.
Yeah.
Yep.
Sweet as. 5:30 on the Saturday. We have got another slaughter potentially. No wet weather around, but the Bunnies looking to bounce back after the loss last week. I think they could hurt Manly in this one.
I think they really could. Key changes are obviously the experiment of Kaloma-Tungi is not as good as Jacob Host is over and done very quickly. Because Host is not even in the 17. Congratulations, mate. That's what happens when you buy Dragons forward. He isn't going to be any good. Maybe the Knights will be happy with, what's his name?
Who? Frizzell?
Yeah, Frizzell. Yeah, he's too quality to be sticky.
Well, I was surprised as Mansell was dropped. I didn't notice he was that bad last week. I don't know if it's just...
He's pretty shit. He only got 14. He was very uninvolved. And it's like how long has he been at the Panthers for? It just looked like his style didn't suit them at all.
Well, he's on the right as well, and he was left at the Panthers, so whether he was unhappy about that, and then obviously based on his performance.
But no one's starting with Mansour, surely.
No. I just was a bit surprised. Like, there might have been people that picked him up in drafts thinking, I didn't think he was going to be that bad. I never did.
Yeah, I think if you have Latrell, I think if you have Walker, I think if you have Reynolds, I think if you have Cook, I think if you have Murray, you're in for some big points.
Yeah, Campbell Graham, Alex Johnson, there could be some tries. Again, the weather will make this all really interesting. And the other side of the park, Dylan Walker, I think that experiment's still going for some reason, only until Turbo comes back. Cherry Evans, you're hoping he'll do something if you've got him, because he's going to be in line for a big drop if he doesn't produce. And you're hoping Tapau and Gerbo, making a heap of tackles and stuff this week.
The only thing interesting from an SC point of view is that Andrew Davey, who was a popular sort of SC option for 300k, came in. He scored 50, I think, off the bench, 56 maybe, from memory. I'm not looking at any of the stats, but I think he was 50s off the bench. And last year, he was the one that I really wanted to go with. I was going to go someone in 300k. So, I mean, Des, and he's one of those coaches where I don't own any Manly players, I don't think, because he scares me.
I didn't even start with Saab, and I was a big Saab fan.
Now I never started with Saab. And if you had Saab, you'd just be like, fucking hell, mate. He's in the hammer mold.
Yeah, and even like Foots at tour, and there was a heap of guys I just missed. Thank fuck.
I mean, I don't know who I went. I was able to go To'o and Capwell, so I went Laurie and Simonson, and I went enough. I went enough in there. So I skipped Saab, and I skipped some of these shit ones like Fusatura and Saab.
Yeah, I dodged a few bullets there with. I think I went enough and Simonson and Laurie and had Fergo.
What do you think of Arrow?
Yeah, look, it's an interesting one. I was initially high on him straight away after that game, like everyone was. I'm a little bit wary. Like he only played 45 minutes. The base was good. He's not cheap. He's still just under 500k. He's still on the bench this week, so I think still want to have another look at him. The base wasn't that crazy good. Like it was, he had a higher PPM, but he had 56 points in 45 minutes.
If they knew that old mate Host was shit and they brought Arrow in at lock and put Murray to second row, which I know they want Murray at lock this year, but even Arrow at second row playing 60 would have been good the way he played the other night. But if he's still on the bench and he's in the front row rotation with Burgess and Totola, I just don't think he's going to get any more minutes. I think he'll be the same as what he did last week, every week.
Yeah, and he had a heap of tackle busts, so that's I don't know if that's a normal Arrow thing. He had an offload or two, possibly one effective offload.
He looked good though. He looked like
I think he's one I'll have another week on. I was thinking I'll get him straight in, but have another look this week and have a serious think about it if he gets, because if he was to get a little bit more minutes for some reason, it'll be really relevant.
Yeah. Yep. Bloodbath. That's our.
Yeah. And to finish off on the Saturday night, it'll be a stinker with a couple of the spoon threats playing up against each other. The Cows taking on the Dragons, and I don't even know what to say about this one. This is the kind of one you probably hope it would be raining in, and it probably won't be. But plenty of people are looking at Lolo to see how he bounces back. Good to see Fui Maono's kept his 13th spot. Lomax owners will be keen for this one. I'm just trying to see if there's anyone else with relevance in there. Obviously, Holmes on the wing again. It was a bit of an interesting one, mate, but this one I won't be that keen on, to be honest, if I'm doing other things.
As an old Canberra Raiders supporter, I know that Todd Payton was a stubborn old bloody front rower, and I think he's like coaching. He wants to achieve something there, and I don't think that many things are going to change. I think he's going to say, get in your position, learn how to play your position, and do your position well. So I don't think everyone's like, I think Lolo will go one of either two ways. He'll be angry, and I think that when Lolo's in a mood, good luck to anyone in the game. He could go on and score, like TPJ at a PPM of 2 points.
Yeah.
Or, I mean, isn't it? Have you ever seen Lolo look the way he did when he was on the field last week? He looked so not into it.
Just disinterested, didn't he?
Yeah, it looked weird to me. Like, he just didn't run with, like, the venom and just, like, bending the line back. It just looked like weird to me. I don't know if he's super happy.
Yeah, it's interesting to see how that's going to evolve, because you got to think they're not really going to push for the title this year. I think they'll be lucky to challenge for the 8 in an ideal world. So, but someone like that who's on huge money.
You need to keep him for 7 years, so let's have 5 years of spoon.
Yeah, I mean, he's 27, 28 years old. You're probably getting your best out of him. How use him? Like, what are you trying to save him for when he's in his 30s and he's not going to be playing his best footy anyway?
Yeah, and I mean, I've seen some people saying, oh, well, he knows that he's going to have to put him back to 70 minutes. Well, I don't think he will.
No, I don't think he will either. he's proven, like I guess last year with what he did with the Warriors, he's probably put some things in place and it's produced some results for them, and he's probably going to do the same thing here, like you said, and he won't budge until he sees some change out of Lolo, whatever that looks like.
I think Lolo is the only one that's an interesting watch on there. I don't know if you know anyone else really.
Josh, you'll be watching Lomax, so that's probably about it.
Yeah, I mean Lomax. I always thought that it totally knocked me for a loop last year that he did as well as he did. I just think that there's so much worse this year. I tipped him for my spoon. And what did Lomax score last week? I think he was still respectable, 50s.
I wouldn't guess.
But I just
40.
don't think there's 40. Yeah, so I don't think there's as much for him this year. And it's not, I think that, can you imagine, all I will say is imagine Lomax in the Roosters backline or the Melbourne backline.
Yeah.
And in that team, I think it does a player of Lomax's quality a disservice. Last year, it was him and McInnes that just held everything that they were. And I just think in this year, who is getting Lomax ball?
Yeah. Yeah. I thought that last year as well, and it happened. So.
Well, I mean, they were better last year because they at least had they didn't have Fuimaono and Josh Kerr in their second row.
They had McInnes doing things as well, yeah.
Yeah, they had bloody McInnes at instead of a 32-year-old injury-prone they've taken it's a big giant step backwards.
Yeah, agreed.
There's less for Lomax. There's less for Jack Bird. There's nothing. Tyro Fuimaono as a cash grab, playing lock in the 200s.
I don't know how Josh Kerr's kept an edge there. I think that's only a matter of time. Maybe Philly might find the edge and Ford finds his way back.
Imagine if you're a Dragons fan and you're like, oh, Mary McGregor's gone. We've got a lot of hope now. Hookers, you had Penrith going really well. What? Josh Kerr, he's a big fucking 8 foot tall bloody front rower.
He's not an edge man. I don't know what Hook's doing there.
Blake Laurie at front row who could play lock, and you got Fuimaono who would be actually a pretty good second rower. I mean, I don't coach, but I reckon I could go in and just give me a date with that team and pick players in better positions, and I'll get a better team.
Agreed. All right, let's move on to, we've got a couple to go, and on the Sunday it'll be potentially another slaughter, weather permitting. Obviously, probably similar to the South and Penrith game. Get all the Roosters in. There'll probably be a heap of points in this one. It'll be hard to play any of the Tigers guys, even like Little and Dame Laurie, as much as I'm a fan of those guys. Ados.
Are you going to play him though?
Well, I don't know. I'll have to have a look at what I do this week, potentially with my trades, depending on whether I go out with Appy. It might mean if I don't upgrade something else, I'll have to.
At the moment, I've kept Little just because he might tackle a heap. I haven't got Laurie in at the moment.
Look, the interesting one as well with that Tiger side is the bench makeup, and I know there was a bit of a chat in some of our group chats as well. I think it was Candos mentioned they've gone and buy and Tommy Talau on the bench. So I'm not sure what the go is with that, whether that stays like that. If it does, maybe bigger Stefano might see some more game time.
Yeah, I mean, that's good for Stefano, you'd think. But, I mean, if they run in with that, I'd be very surprised.
It'll probably also be good for all those Tigers forwards. But I'm not sure what Madge is thinking with that one, whether...
I mean, the overwhelming thing that I saw from week one was with the speed and the way that they kept the ball going for as long. I saw some exhaustion on the field.
Yeah, it'll be interesting. Obviously, the game's changed, Ados, so the pace of the game maybe... we're starting to see this where guys, they're just starting to play with their benches a little bit more. And maybe
what's right,
Yeah. Alex Twile could be a bit benefactor. He didn't play 80 last week, but he can. But yeah, obviously get the chooks in. Mate, one big one I'm not sure on is I feel like I want to give Lachie Lamb another chance, but I also want to trade the fucker out after last week. I don't know what to do.
I skipped Lamb. I went a Little, and I took Watson, and I took Moylan. Those are my 3 that I took. I just worried because it's just big fish, small fish, and I look in that entire team and I look at the smallest fish and it's Lamb.
Yeah.
And in a team that's got B-Moz, J-Moz, Manu, Tupu, Tedesco, Kiri, Takiaho, Tupanua, Angus Crichton, I was just like, where is he getting all of his points?
Yeah, no, you're right. And he doesn't actually need to do anything. He just passes the ball to those guys and they'll do it. He doesn't have to take the line on or do anything.
So him and Hooker entices me slightly.
Well, and Hutchinson on that bench is interesting. I'd have to think Lussick will come off, Lamb will go there, and Hutchinson slides in. So,
yeah.
But, I mean, that happened last week as well, and he didn't really get that much in base because they probably didn't defend enough. But anyway, get the Tigers in. Teddy's very much a captain option. Again, but the wet weather will make it interesting.
Yeah, I mean, this week's a perfect week to just VC Cleary because he's an early game in a smash-up, and if he doesn't go, you just hold on to Desco. It's going to be that's going to be what everyone does. There's going to be lots on offer. I would play all your Roosters, and think about people like it's not the worst for a dummy half against a hard opposition because they can rack up 45 in tackles, But maybe a Laurie is so under question.
Yeah, for sure. Fair call. And to close it out, it'll be the Raiders, won't it? I don't think we've seen the Raiders up.
Yeah, Raiders against the Sharks. Josh used the mob.
Yep.
And again, on the Tigers side of things, Supercoach-wise, people probably had Moylan might not run him again, but they might be forced to. Hiroti has found that Ramian centre spot. I'm just looking at that side. There's nothing really there. Obviously, drafts and stuff are a bit different.
I mean, these guys are not overly Supercoach relevant. Some people want to take a punt on George. If you did, I'd say just keep riding him because this is a good matchup for him as well. I think he'll do well.
Tapane again could be a good option.
That'd be good. Hudson Young will be good. If you had Papali, I think he's one to think about. I think like Papali at 40 minutes, or you've got like Paulo at 70. It might be time to sort of, if you're thinking about next week trying to go to cash generators, maybe you go for the same. Well, I think isn't Papali more expensive than Paulo?
I think he's more. He's like 30k more.
And I mean, I know that it's a Melbourne game, but I just think I can see Papali the Raiders have got such a great bench. Papali just has these games where he's just like, I'll just play 40.
And he's a big game player, I've noticed. Like when they need him to step up, he stands up and he's counted when they need him, and they're not going to need him in the first couple rounds of the year, to be honest.
Yeah, and I mean, Sharks, I wouldn't have anyone, not a single one of them. Maybe Moylan, but I wouldn't play him. I didn't play him last week.
Yeah, he's a matchup guy.
Yeah, I mean, it's at Nestor. I actually liked what I saw from the Sharks last week, and I disliked what I saw from the Raiders. So. I mean, everyone's like, the Raiders, it'll be a smash-up. But I thought that the Sharks looked more slick in the wet than the Raiders did in the dry. And as a Raiders fan, that's my opinion. So I wouldn't say everyone's going to be a cakewalk, but I still think there's good points on for the obvious options if you've got anyone in the Raiders pack.
Yeah, no, sweet as. All right, so that is round 2, all done and dusted. Good luck with any of that. What do we got next?
On to the leagues. So this is
just a bit of a recap.
The all-in leagues.
So all in, it was Red-Nosed Dearden with 14-14, 231 overall. So really good score.
So really good score. 231 overall. Good job.
And Sex Toys, great team name there, Clemmy. That would be Clem from the chat, I can only assume. 1365, mate.
How come I'm not in this? Is this our group?
No, there's 2 BJ leagues.
There's invitational and there's all in.
Oh, yeah. Same.
So well done, Clemmy, 1365. As you can see, just a massive round, plenty of 12 and 1300s all throughout that. So well done, anyone. I think 1250 plus, you're probably in the mix at this stage of the year, and 1350 to 1400, you're absolutely laughing.
I think everyone in there is, if you're in 9,400 after round 1, you're in striking distance for some good stuff. So well done. And if 231, mate. Keep going, John. You're doing well.
And shout out to SpongeBob Company. I actually ran a cashier this year. I didn't realise Scotty was in your ring, so shout out, Scotty. Well done, mate. Good to see you.
Yeah, good score.
On to the Invitational.
And the Invitational, I think it's Matty Labita who's in the chat at the moment that topped it with 13.93.
Asking for tips in the fucking chat. I don't think we should give him any.
I know. Look at him, 13.93.
And
best looking guys in 2.
Yours truly in second at 13.81. Big score, mate, sitting in the top 1,000 at 820 to start the year. Great, absolutely great start, mate.
Yeah, not a bad start. I mean, like I said, some of those 20s and 18s I got, I mean, should have been a 14 mid, but we've all got those excuses every week. And if you could choose, would I start in the top 1,000 after round 1? Every year you'd take it, wouldn't you?
Every year, buddy. That's a really good foundation to build off. So you'll be looking to do that in round 2.
Yeah.
Fire and Ice, Leanne, always consistent, always. It's an absolute weapon, Leanne. With a 13.75, we've got the Doctor in 4th for 13.61 there. Big shout out to Shano in 5th at 13.60.
Well done.
And we've got Daniel in there as well, who's been in the chat, ADOS. He's been jumping in and getting involved with it. He's had, I think, his best start.
Doesn't mind a bit of the banter as well.
He does. So well done, young Daniel. And good to see Marty, who's one of the lads that sort of jumped on with us from our first season. Had a good start with 13.23. So good job, Marty.
And I think he's a good Supercoach mind. He's got a mind for it, I think.
Yeah. So Malevolence Inc. is in there again, and some really good starts for guys there. So well done.
Our group must be this group must be in good shape, really. Because
I think me and Josh are dragging it down a bit.
Oh, Josh.
Yeah. Look, it's look. All I say is it's round 1. You know, it's a 25 round season. Long way to go. It's a marathon.
I mean, in the final game of the week, I knew that I was all played out, and I was on 13.81. And you know, Kando, who's someone I naturally rival against because it's just good fun because he's such a great player. Mm-hmm. You know, like every year, Kando's a great player, and I like to see how well I fare against him. And he had Moylan playing, and I was like, if Moylan gets a 40 in the second half, and originally the pre-updates it got down to 6 points, between us. So it was a tight old first round, especially with updates. So I don't know how everyone else swung, but I swung up like 150. You know, like it was. I was very happy with updates. Personally, because so good start, a really good start in the Invitational. Great start by everyone.
Yeah, absolutely, mate, absolutely. And the group, folks. And obviously, the biggest start of all from anyone in the BJ.
Jed Rose.
Oh, Jetty, mate.
14.97. I think I've been playing Supercoach for it'd be 12 or 13 years. Maybe when it was Fox Sports before. Well, I think it was always Supercoach, but I've never cracked 1,500. But 14.97 is.
And third overall, you're so close to the money for the week, you know. But imagine if you're like Ping and Thors and you're in 8th, you stupid mutt. Like,
well, I think do they pay top 10? Do they pay the top 10 to weeklies?
I think it's just the top score for the week. It's 1,000.
I thought they were giving out KO vouchers or something like that for others.
I thought it was 1st, 2nd, and 3rd, and then 7th. Oh, it could be overall, actually. It might be the end of the year one.
I came in 40th for the BBL today, and I got like a plastic cricket set and a little keychain and a $30 KFC voucher. So.
Oh, did you? I think I came in enough to get something. I haven't got shit.
Yeah, it's probably on its way, mate. Yeah, but mate, look at that for a group. Like you've got Fire and Ice Leanne at 1,004, and let's just quietly mention how good she is as a player. Yeah,
absolutely, mate. She's very consistent. I think led a lot of our league, the Invitational League, most of last year as well.
Yeah, I mean, I think I got her twice in head-to-heads, and she bloody rolled me both times.
Yeah, so she's really consistent, really solid, like 13.75. But
good start.
Everyone in that screen, huge scores, guys. Everyone in the top 1,000, especially Jed and Tristan in the top 10. Anyone in the top 100, 200, that's huge. Good stuff to keep it up.
I mean, 14 in the 1400s. I mean, a good score last. I mean, I got a 1380, which was a good score. You got 100 leads, so just don't fuck it up this week and you stay in the top 10.
Yeah, that's interesting, as you said. Like, you now have a good start that you can either not take those risks, and if you can just be solid, you can set yourself up nicely for the year.
If I was in Jed's spot, I'd be trading out Crichton if there was someone, a Barnett maybe, if I didn't have Barnett. Yeah. Just for a week and then get, Crichton back in. Just
it's interesting. Someone like Pangai or something would be interesting as well.
Yeah. Just doing something like that and get yourself into first. And tell me your address, Jed, and I'll come around, mate, for a...
Damon, keep it up, mate. You'll be right. You just keep plugging away, bud. You'll make the graphic, I'm sure.
Have any of us regulars on the show ever made the graphic, Breno?
In the group?
No, I know that.
Is this the graphic here?
I know that Taylor Jane topped the group 1 week last year, but I don't think any of us ever have.
Well, I'm technically one of us now, and I'm in 9th, so I'm on the graphic.
Yeah, we'll take it.
We'll take that.
All right.
The championship draft results.
Oh, yes, of course.
And it started with a grand final replay.
It did. It's funny. I had Tedesco. I guess that's all I can say. I will take that. I was the number 1 pick. I'll take Tedesco. I'm pretty happy after it. It makes it pretty hard in draft. But yeah, got a good jump on Kando to start the year. Actually knocked me off in another draft that we play, a cashy. So I'm dark about that. So he'll take that. Bogues, you were rolled by Psycho Circus, and funnily enough, the opposite happened in the cashy as well.
But I have Pappy in the cashy, and I had him as captain. Yeah. So
there you go. Scrambled Legs, who was the debutant, rolled Wayno with a decent, a pretty high scoring one there, 834 to 789. Tomo, the 2 debutants, I guess, 2 of the debutants in the league. I don't know if Tomo's played draft, but it was Benny's first draft. Big Pappy got the W there, and Ados, mate.
I got fucking bent over by Mana. I got fucking bent over. I was done by Friday, mate. I knew he was going to win. He was like 200 ahead of me, and I could never get the run on because I've got 3 injured players waiting for him to come back, and I knew before it even started that he was going to win. And
excuses have started.
I hate losing to someone so good looking. If he was ugly, I'd be okay with it. But I'm not okay because he's just so good looking.
Draft is not a sprint; it's absolutely a marathon. So just make yourself in that top 5 and give yourself a chance at the end of the year. As you said, you got guys injured. That's all that matters.
Yeah,
I will. For this year, I've just remembered last year. I think I said the winner would get a hoodie, and then I won, and I wasn't buying Kando a hoodie for coming runner up.
You know how it's weird. Like I'm in one where I'm in a cashy where it's like a $1,000 buy-in, but I care about this so much more.
Well, what I will do...
I'm so devastated. I checked in and I saw how much I was getting fucking rolled by Mana, and I was just like, I can't start this with a none and 1.
Look, I am going to... what we will do, we'll sponsor the winner with one of the Supercoach rings. I think people are pretty familiar with those. So the winner this year, we won't go the hoodie, but we'll go the Supercoach ring.
Shit,
and if I win it again, I don't. It's all good.
$90 or something.
Okay. Yeah.
I will buy the ring myself, and I'll wear it for the next job.
But it was a good week, I think, to start it off. I don't think there was any huge blowouts. Everyone was pretty close, so I think it's going to make for an interesting year because there's all some pretty strong players in there, really. Just if some stuff goes your way. I mean, if Brent doesn't win and you got fucking Teddy, you're a bloody special needs, mate.
I agree. There's more pressure on me. So
I had Teddy
anyway,
last
I'm
year,
super competitive. I will want to win every single league, every head-to-head I'm in, just because that's how we are. Is that us, Bogues?
We are done. It's a fucking marathon show this week.
Well, that's what you want, Bogues. You're all about the movie marathons. And Ados, so do you want to quickly recap for us, mate, before you go? Trades this week, what were you doing?
Yeah, trades for me this week are going to be Happy down. I'm going to go down to Brayley. Reason being that Bradley had a good game. He played 80. I think he's going to make money. And Appy, the 28 and the minutes just concern me. He could just come out and brain it this week, but I think that Bradley could come out and brain it as well for, 300 cheaper, and it's against soft opposition as well. So I think the captaincy has really suited him, and I think he's a good downgrade. And I had to trade out Lodge anyway, so because of that trade, I was able to go Lodge up to Paulo. Mm-hmm. And some people would say it's crazy to go Paulo, against Melbourne, but Paulo looked fantastic. He looked like he was playing good minutes, and I think if you got a Paulo and Takiaho front row like I do, you're in for a successful season. So those are my two trades.
Well, that's what I started with this year. I started with TK and Paulo. Good. And I saw a comment in the chat that Paulo's matchup friendly as well. It doesn't matter who he plays, and I'd agree with that. Bogan?
Not sure yet. Thinking about getting rid of Cookie, but I might leave it a week and just see how he goes.
Yeah, cook down to bloody Brayley and get yourself 400k, mate, or 350, and do something with that.
Yeah, possibly.
Yeah,
possibly.
Yeah, nothing wrong with it.
Beautiful. I don't know what I'll do. I've got Coruscant. I've got to fix up some nuffs from looping last week. And yeah, Lockie Lamb I'm really annoyed with. So that's where I'm looking. Maybe looking at Brayley, maybe looking at Latrell. If I could get Cody, that might be good. But Latrell, I like the value for money.
Mahoney as well, which is not bad. But, I mean, I think that might be just a bit of chasing because not going to get that every week. And I mean, it's probably going to be good for him, but that's going to stay in his rolling average for 1 week. So don't jump the gun on him. What do you reckon Josh is going to do? Is he going to take...
I don't know, mate.
Yeah.
Might have,
they were the ones we all wanted to know.
Might have to fucking send a welfare check round to his house the way things are going.
Yeah,
I mean, we're going to have to get him I'm with stupid and just an arrow pointing upwards.
I think he's going to have to do a pimp my team on his own team.
Yeah, get his own team on and discuss why it's so wrong.
Where's the reset button?
Yeah.
No, all right, beautiful. Well, I think that's us for the night. If you're not in the group code, please jump into that. We've still got... I think you can still jump into those any time. You got the number up on the screen
692.
692 946. If you're still on, thanks for joining us. I saw there was a fair few people on with us throughout the night, so thank you guys for your input in the chat. We'll obviously move on from any questions this week, getting a bit late, but thank you all for joining us.
Best chat ever.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much again for joining us.
Got you guys. Love to be on, and good luck everyone this week. And if you're not 1,000, you're still in with a great hunt if you have a good one this week. So good luck.
And like we say, it's the 1 week. It could be a complete reversal next week, and all the guys that flopped last week do well this week, and we could be upside down next week. So
I mean, how many years are you just like, I'm going great, I'm getting 1,100, and my average is 1,050, and then you have an 800.
Yep, it happens.
Yeah, it happens. So
it happens. So just keep on the horse. May the trade gods be kind. Good luck with your captains and all that sort of stuff. And yeah, obviously, if you haven't given us a like and a subscribe, please jump on and do that for us as well. But otherwise, boys, all the best for the weekend. Thanks, Bogan.
Yeah, cheers.
Again. And we'll see you all next week, okay?
Good. Love you all. Bye-bye.
See you guys. That's got to be a record.